Hi everyone, it's Stephanie from Mama Bear Inc. Thank you for joining me today for another Use Your Stamps card video. Today I'm going to be using a set I purchased from Stampin' Up! Quite a while back called Beautiful Bunch. I'm going to be using a couple of images out of this stamp set and the coordinating punch to make a card loosely based on a gift packaging idea from the new Stampin' Up! Catalog. So the first thing we're going to do is take our card base, which is cut 11 by 4 1/4 and scored at 5 1/2. It's Classic Craft Cardstock by Paper Tray Ink. And we're going to use that little flower center with some Versamark ink to stamp a random pattern along the entirety of the card front. It was about this time that I remembered to get out my embossing buddy so that we can eliminate any static electricity and oils from your skin that may cause embossing powder to stick to places you don't want it to. So now we're going to take that stamp and stamp it across the front of the card in a random pattern. My pattern didn't wind up so random, so I added some extra images to kind of random that out. And we're going to add just one more here right down toward the bottom. And then we'll be pulling out our coffee filter. This is a great idea I learned from Jennifer McGuire. It helps to keep that embossing powder from getting everywhere. We're using gold embossing powder by Ranger today, and we're just going to sprinkle that across all of our images, making sure that they're covered real good. And then we're going to tap off the excess. And I did see that I got a little bit around one of the images that I didn't want, so I just used a dry brush and a little to get that off there before I started up my heat tool. And about here, I remembered that I needed to move all of that stuff out of the way so I didn't blow it all over the place. So I just heated all of those images until they were completely melted with my heat tool, and that completed the front of the card, or the card base. Next, we're going to be doing some stamping using that large flower image from Beautiful Bunch along with the coordinating punch. And this one's a little bit tricky because those petals are not all the same. You want to make sure that you take the time to set your flower on your block so that you can punch it out well. And I just use a little mark at the top of my block, which I showed you there just a couple of seconds ago, to make sure that I'm stamping it correctly. We're stamping 2 images in Pool Party ink by Stampin' Up! Then we're going to take out a second stamp set by Stampin' Up! Called Petite Petals. And we're using one of those little images to go in the center of our finished flower. And we'll be stamping that one in Daffodil Delight by Stampin' Up! This one is not quite so hard to line up with the matching punch. It's a 5-petaled flower, so as long as you stamp it with 2 petals down, you shouldn't have any difficulty with that punch. We'll get the inks put away and get out that matching punch. This is for the large flower, and I forget what it's called, forgive me. But we'll go ahead and line that up with our stamped image, which lines up very nicely now because we took the time to do so. Punch out the first one, and we'll line up the second one and get it punched out. Then we're going to be grabbing our coordinating punch for Petite Petals. And again, as long as you have those 2 little petals down on the bottom, you shouldn't have any difficulty lining it up, although he gave me a little bit of trouble here. It took me just a second to get him lined up and punched out right, just because I think it's so small. And that's going to complete our punching for this card. We do have a little bit more stamping to do. We have a sentiment strip, which is just white cardstock that I've cut to about 3/4 of an inch. We're breaking out a 3rd stamp set by Stampin' Up! Called Simply Wonderful, and we're using one of the sentiments in there that says, "You're the best." And I've got that mounted up on a block, and we're going to be stamping it in VersaFine Onyx Black ink. It just gives the best, in my opinion, crisp, clear impression, which is really important, especially for sentiments. So I lined that up and got it stamped down on that sentiment strip. We'll go ahead and set it aside. We're going to bring our card base back in and fold it up. It was easier to work flat when we were doing stamping and embossing. Now we'll fold on that score line and fold it down real tight with the bone folder. We're going to be adding some ribbon to this card in gold and just a little bit of light blue. And we're going to be creating kind of loop-de-loops for our flowers to go over top of so that that ribbon will just peek out from behind the flowers. And I attached the ribbon down with some large glue dots after determining my placement. And I fought with those glue dots quite a bit, so I've edited a lot of that out so you don't have to watch me fight with glue dots. Our blue ribbon is down and our gold ribbon is going down. Get that in place, all with glue dots. And then we're going to determine exactly how we want our flowers to go. I decided I was going to take the top flower and curl the petals in an upward motion with my bone folder. And the bottom petals I'm going to curl downward with my bone folder. And that'll give me the dimension that I'm looking for to kind of pop those flowers up over that lace piece. And I'm going to put those flowers together with the petals matched up, not offset at all, using another glue dot. These things are super sticky, so make sure that you have things exactly the way you want them before you press, and be done with that. The center flower is going to go in with a little bit of dimension on a dimensional, and these dimensionals by Stampin' Up! Just fit the back of those little guys. So we'll get the backing paper taken off and set that into the center of the flower. And then to place that finished flower piece over all of that ribbon, we're again going to use one of those super sticky glue dots. And that just makes it a little bit easier than trying to hold liquid adhesive in place until it dries. So now that we've got our flower in place over our ribbon, we need to determine what we're going to do with that sentiment strip. And I had originally thought maybe I would tuck it behind the flowers, but it didn't work out that way in the end. So I cut off one end of it and then decided I was going to flag the other end. And so as soon as I get done messing with it there, I'm going to cut the other end off and just use a square punch to line up in the center there and snip, and you've got a nice flagged end. And I'm going to play with it just a second more here to try to figure out where exactly I want it till I finally decide on the bottom. And then I'm going to turn that over and use 3 more dimensionals to pop that up off the bottom of the card. You could use some foam tape here. I was just being a little bit lazy. So I put 3 dimensionals on the back, took the backing paper off of that, and carefully lined it up with the fold of the card so I could get it nice and straight there across the bottom. And that's going to finish our card for today. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.